Music Room Lockdown. It was the last period on a dreary Thursday afternoon when the lockdown began at Carter Ridge High School. The sky was the color of concrete, and the hallways buzzed with restless energy, the kind that comes when the students and teachers alike can feel the weekend just within reach. Inside room 212, the music room, Mara Jensen sat alone at the grand piano, slowly working out the final measures of a melody that had haunted her for days. The room was mostly empty. Mr. Kilroy, the music teacher, sat at his cluttered desk in the back, scribbling notes into a stack of theory tests. The only sounds were the soft, imperfect notes from the piano and the faint hum of a loose ceiling tile vibrating with the air conditioning. Mara didn't know where the song had come from. It came to her in pieces, in dreams she couldn't fully remember. A lullaby, she thought at first, though it felt darker every time she played it. She wrote it down anyway, trying to capture the sound as it whispered through her fingers. Then the intercom clicked. Lockdown, immediate lockdown, this is not a drill. The voice wasn't familiar. It wasn't the school secretary or the principal. It was clipped, mechanical, like it had been pre-recorded and altered. Mr. Kilroy stood up fast. "Under the desk, Mara. Now I'll lock the door." She obeyed, crawling under the piano as he dashed across the room and turned the lock with a loud click. Then he pulled the heavy black curtains over the windows. The room darkened, the only light a narrow band at the base of the door. The silence afterward was unnerving. No running in the halls, no announcements, just the sound of her own breathing and her heartbeat thumping in her ears. Minutes passed. 5, 10? Mara lost track. Then came the footsteps, slow, methodical, someone or something moving down the hallway just outside the door. The floorboards creaked with each step. Mara pressed her hand over her mouth, trying not to make a sound. Mr. Kilroy sat frozen beside her beneath the piano, his eyes wide. The footsteps stopped directly in front of the door. Tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks on the glass pane of the door. Then a slow scraping noise like something sharp dragging along the metal handle. Mara felt her body go cold. The scraping stopped. The silence returned. She and Mr. Kilroy remained still, barely breathing. Then from the far corner of the room where the choir robes were hung, a whisper broke the silence. "Help me, please." It was a girl's voice, software broken, terrified. Mr. Kilroy turned sharply. "Who's there?" he whispered. There was nothing visible in the corner, just the robes swaying ever so slightly. Then something emerged. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, half hidden behind the hanging robes. It was a girl, maybe 16, with tangled black hair and a choir dress stained with something dark. Her eyes were wide, glassy, and wrong. "I died here," she said. Mara pressed herself further against the wall beneath the piano. "They forgot me." During a lockdown, Mr. Kilroy stood slowly. "This isn't real," he said. "You're not real." The girl took another step forward. Her feet didn't make a sound on the linoleum. "They left me in the practice room. I screamed. I banged on the door. No one came. Soundproofing, you see. I was here for days before." She trailed off. Suddenly, she vanished. One moment there, the next, nothing. Mara turned to Mr. Kilroy, whose face was pale. "Who was that?" she whispered. "Delilah Rowan," he said quietly. "A student from 1989. There was an incident. They never found her." Something rustled behind the robes again. Mara crawled forward and picked up a leather-bound notebook that had fallen out of the shadows. It was old, its pages yellowed and brittle. On the inside cover, property of Delilah M. Rowan. She flipped through the pages. September 14th. They always forget about me. I practice alone. Mr. Craig never checks anymore. October 2nd. There was a lockdown today. They said it was a drill, but it lasted hours. I saw something in the hall. It wasn't a teacher. October 10th. I keep hearing music playing when I'm not near the piano. October 12th. They locked the door and didn't come back. I think I'm stuck. My phone died. I screamed, but no one heard. I think something else is in here with me. The last entry was smudged and ended abruptly. Suddenly, the intercom crackled again. All clear. Lockdown over. Resume normal activities. But the voice was off. Too deep. Wrong. Mr. Kilroy didn't move. He stared at the intercom as if it had grown teeth. That's not the office, he said. That's not anyone we know. Mara stood cautiously and peeked out the window. The hallway was empty. Desolate. Lockers open. Some books strewn across the floor. A single chair turned over at the end of the corridor, and the lights were flickering. Then the intercom buzzed again. Mara, don't leave the room. Her blood froze. Don't trust him. She turned to Mr. Kilroy W. Gym lockdown terror. It was supposed to be a normal Friday gym class at Crestmore Middle School, where the echoes of sneakers on hardwood and the shrill whistle of Coach Raines usually defined the last period of the week. The students were playing dodgeball, the kind of chaotic but harmless battle that left everyone either sweating or laughing, or both. The bleachers were half retracted, the windows open to let in the late spring air, and the doors propped for circulation. Ava Landers was tying her shoelace near the climbing ropes when the announcement crackled over the intercom, abrupt and jarring. Lockdown protocol initiated. This is not a drill. Find a safe space and remain quiet. The gym went silent for half a second before chaos set in. Coach Raines blew his whistle hard, louder than usual. Into the locker rooms. Move! Move! The students ran, some still holding dodgeballs, others confused and slow to react. Ava followed the wave of bodies funneling into the girls' locker room, the sharp smell of sweat and disinfectant hitting her instantly. Coach Raines stayed behind, locking the gym doors and drawing the emergency shades over the windows. In the locker room, 30 or so girls huddled in the showers, silent, breathing heavy. The lights had been turned off. Someone started crying softly. Ava crouched against the tile wall, her heart pounding, trying to listen. Nothing outside. Then the emergency lights flicked on. A dull red glow bathed the tiled room, and then the screaming started. Not from the hallway, from the boys' locker room next door. Guttural, raw, and horrifying. One long, drawn-out scream that turned into gurgling. Ava wanted to cover her ears but couldn't move. A thud, then another, and then silence. Dead, terrifying silence. Someone whispered, "What was that?" But Ava didn't answer. She was frozen. Then came the scraping, not on the floor, on the ceiling. Something crawling, nails dragging along the panels. The emergency lights flickered again. Then the showers turned on. All of them. Ice-cold water blasted from the heads, soaking everyone. The girls shrieked and stumbled backward. Ava looked up. Something was coming through the vent. A hand, bony, pale, with too many fingers, gripped the edge and began to pull something through. A face followed, eyes too wide, mouth stretched open far too much. It dropped from the ceiling in a twisted, boneless fall, and the panic broke. Screams, running, crying. The thing moved fast, slithering between legs, dragging itself with arms that cracked at unnatural angles. Ava ran. She bolted out of the locker room into the darkened gym, slipping on the wet floor. She looked back and saw it chasing another girl, pulling her down, claws digging in, leaving streaks of red on the tile. Coach Raines was gone. The main doors were shut, chained. Ava dashed for the equipment closet and slammed the door behind her, hiding among yoga mats and dodgeballs. From the slats, she could see the gym faintly lit in red. The creature crawled out of the locker room, dragging a body. Its face was flickering, shifting, like static on a broken TV. It looked almost human, almost. And then it began to hum, a child's lullaby, slowly, out of tune. Ava bit her hand to keep from screaming. It dragged the body toward the center of the gym and then paused, turning its face, if it could be called that, toward the equipment room. Straight at her, it whispered her name. Avenue, Avenue, Avenue. Her name shouldn't have echoed, but it did. The lock on the equipment room began to turn on its own. She backed up, grabbed a bat, raised it. Then the intercom crackled again. All clear. Lockdown over. Return to class. The lights came on. The gym was empty. The chain on the door was gone. No blood, no body. Just the echo of the lullaby still hanging in the air. Ava stumbled out. The locker rooms were dry, clean. No one there. Her classmates were in the hallway, confused but unharmed. Coach Raines stood by the gym door checking a clipboard. "Everything okay, Landers?" he asked, as if nothing had happened. Her clothes were soaked. Her hands were shaking. No one else seemed to remember, but Ava did. Especially the whisper and the way the air still carried that scent of rust and rot.
Art Room Lockdown. The lockdown at Brookvale High began just after second period during art class, when the students were bent over their canvases in near silence, save for the scratch of pencils and the quiet hum of Miss Brenner's jazz playlist playing softly from her desktop speaker. Liam Price was working on a charcoal sketch near the back of the room, his fingers already smudged with dark dust as he tried to shade the folds of the cloaked figure he'd been obsessively drawing for weeks, a faceless form with elongated limbs that had appeared again and again in his dreams. The announcement hit like a bolt. "Lockdown initiated. Secure immediately. This is not a drill." And Miss Brenner's face went pale before she even moved. She told everyone to get down, away from windows, and turned off the lights with shaking hands, drawing the blackout curtains shut. Liam crawled under the wide table, heart pounding, watching as Miss Brenner locked the door and checked each student's position. The air was thick with charcoal and fear. At first, there was only silence. Then came the shuffling, the kind of sound that didn't match any footsteps Liam had ever heard, like something dragging across the tiled floor, sticky and deliberate. It was coming from the hallway. Then, louder, knocking, not at their door, at several. Banging, then silence again. A girl whispered that she heard breathing near the windows, but no one dared look. Minutes passed. An hour? Time distorted in the dark. Then came the smell, sharp, like rotten meat and burnt plastic, and the door handle began to jiggle slowly, rhythmically, as if someone or something was toying with it. Liam's eyes were fixed on the bottom gap of the door where a faint red light began to pulse, and something slid underneath. A paper. He waited until the handle stopped moving before crawling toward it, ignoring Miss Brenner's whispered pleas to stay still. The paper was damp, old, torn. A charcoal sketch, his sketch, the faceless figure. But this version was different. It was reaching for him. He turned it over. Scrawled in jagged pencil were the words, "I'm already inside." Liam's breath caught in his throat. He turned toward the room. Nothing had changed. Everyone still hidden. Miss Brenner still at the front, frozen in fear. But then one of the students, a girl named Harper, started convulsing. At first, Liam thought it was a panic attack, but then her limbs began to twist at impossible angles. Her mouth opened, but instead of a scream, a deep, guttural growl poured out. Her skin began to blacken at the edges, like char burning paper, and her eyes rolled back into her head. Miss Brenner screamed, but no one moved. With sweat, as the creature that used to be Harper dropped from above and started crawling toward him. He backed up beneath the table, clutching a palette knife, and then the intercom came to life again. Lockdown over. Return to normal instruction. The creature paused, stared at the speaker, then smiled with jagged, broken teeth before crawling out the art room door, which had silently opened. The lights flicked on. Harper lay unconscious on the floor, back to normal. Miss Brenner rushed to her. The other students looked dazed. No one spoke. No one remembered. But Liam still held the paper, the drawing that hadn't been his. He tucked it in his sketchbook and left class early that day. That night, in his sleep, the cloaked figure appeared again, this time closer, smiling, and holding the very same torn drawing in its hand.